excited to produce this next video for you on the detailed question for the reading strategy. And so we're going to go through the reading strategy for detailed questions step by step. And the first thing that I want to do is tell you that this is going to be very involved, right? We're going to go through each step so you know how to do it exactly how you need to so you can get a top score on the reading. Because as you know, detailed questions, you're going to get anywhere from 4 to 6 on each reading. So 4 to 6 questions out of 14 total per reading means you're looking at about 30% of your score or more, give or take that TOEFL reading that you have. So what I want to do is show you that every step requires you to have a certain amount of focus and ability. So I'm going to give you an example that we're going to walk through to go through each of the steps that you just learned about. It's actually a little bit challenging. This is probably one of the tougher detail questions that you'll ever get. And so the reason why I chose this is because I think walking you through this tougher question is going to really prepare you because everything is pretty much going to be easier. So I hope that makes sense. So you ready? So let's go ahead and begin. So if you look on the screen, I've taken, just to make it easier, reading, and I've broken down the first paragraph, which the question is going to be on, and I've broken it down sentence by sentence. So as I scroll through, you're going to see this is all connected with one paragraph, and you're going to see the question. So what's going to happen on the TOEFL? You know that you're going to have the reading, you're going to scroll through, you're going to click next, and you're going to see a question. So we're going to pretend that this is the first question that you see on the screen, and it's a detailed question, right? So how do we know? What's the first thing we do? So we're going to read the question together. So according to paragraph 1, which of the following developments occurred in Mexico between 9,000 and 4,000 years ago? Now the first thing I want to tell you is that where a lot of students make mistakes is that they actually reread this question many times. So you might be reading it, and then you go to the actual reading itself, and then you go back to the question, you read it, and then the reading, then you read the question, then you look at the answer choices, and you read the question again. So if that's what you're doing, you're actually reducing your efficiency by a huge amount. So you want to train yourself to actually know the question after reading it just once. So what's our strategy to make sure you do this? After you read the question, close your eyes and try to repeat the content of it. Now this might take you a few tries in the beginning. So here's what I want you to do. Read the question out loud, then close your eyes and keep them closed and repeat what you remember the question asking you. Then look at the question and determine yourself, did I get all of the key words? So I'm going to give you a couple of examples. So according to paragraph 1, which of the following developments occurred in Mexico between 9,000 and 4,000 years ago? So I close my eyes and I say, this question is asking me what happened in Mexico 9,000 and 4,000 years ago. Okay? Now that actually is slightly inaccurate because if you look here it says which of the following developments. So a development is different than what happened because the development has a special meaning. So you really want to make sure that you know the key words. So in this situation, I actually need to read again and remember, okay, I read a little bit too quick last time. I didn't really get all the key words. I don't know it very well. Also, it says between 9,000 and 4,000 years ago, which I didn't really say. So you know that means something, right? Between these two spans of time. So at first you're going to read a little bit slowly. You're going to close your eyes, you're going to test yourself. And then you're going to train yourself so that eventually off the first reading, you'll really be able to get the key idea. Because as you can imagine, how are you going to really find the answer in the reading if you're not clear on what the question is asking you? So let's go ahead and read it again, right? So I read it. According to paragraph 1, which of the following developments occurred in Mexico between 9,000 and 4,000 years ago? So I close my eyes. Okay, so this question is asking me, when I look at the reading, what development occurred in Mexico between 9,000 and 4,000 years ago? Okay, so now I'm clear. Now I know exactly what I'm looking for. So now, as you know, when you read the question, you also determine the question type. So I know what this question is asking me, and I know it's a detailed question, right? And just to prepare you, if you get other question types like paraphrase or plug-in, those questions always are the same, right? They're just copy and paste. So you don't have to read with this level of detail. Just with inference questions and detailed questions, that's where you really need to concentrate. Same thing with purpose questions too. So now that we know the question, what do we do next? You guys know that we need to find the key words, right? So for the key words, one thing that I noticed is sometimes students feel they got to pick the perfect keywords. But really, a keyword is any noun or verb, any content word whatsoever. So in this case, development, occurred, Mexico, 9,000, 4,000 years ago, maybe even between, right? So when it comes to keywords, all the words that represent information are your keywords. Now the interesting thing, as I told you, just for this video, to make it easy for you, I broke down the paragraph into sections. So even though they're divided into 4 parts, it's all part of one paragraph. So I hope that makes sense. So now that we look at the reading, we have our question in mind and we have the key words. And so if I look at the paragraph, fantastic, I see my keywords in the first sentence. Between 9,000 and 4,000 years ago, most of Mexico. Now, so here's one thing that's really important. I want to give you a little clue that focus is the key to improving your reading score. I promise you, if you can just improve your focus and you don't even learn strategy, you'll get a higher score. So that's why I have you do the closed eyes things, so that you have a measure of your level of focus. So when you look through this sentence, I want to be careful because remember that you're reading quickly, you're scanning, and then your eyes are and your brain is alert to the key words. That's where you start paying attention. So you're kind of reading fast, not trying to understand everything until you see your key words, and then you have a signal. Okay, I better pay attention because my answer is likely here. So let me start concentrating. Remember the question I'm being asked, hold that in your brain as I'm reading and kind of discover the answer. So there are a couple things that we do to prepare ourselves to succeed with this. So now that we read the question, I close my eyes and I know what it is. The next thing that I want to do is make up a fake answer. Now the reason for this is because you want your brain to be prepared for what you're looking for before you start reading. So we have the question, we understand it, we know our key words. Now think of a fake answer. For example, let's say I ask you, what did Johnny eat for breakfast today? Right? Do you know who Johnny is? No, you don't. But you can guess, right? So try to think of a fake answer right now. Just what did Johnny eat for breakfast today? Right? Maybe he ate eggs, right? We'll just say he ate eggs. Now let me ask you a different question. What time did Johnny go to sleep yesterday? Right? You don't know Johnny, but just make it up. What time did he go to sleep yesterday? We'll say like at 10 p.m. So you see that one question is at 10 p.m. and one question's fake answer is he ate eggs. So if you make up a fake answer, it pushes you to understand the question and figure out what you're really reading for. So for example here, which of the following developments? So do you know what a development is? Right? So you got to know that. What is a development? A change, an improvement, right? Occurred in Mexico between 9,000 and 4,000 years ago. That's a long time ago, not yesterday. So if you think about that, what kind of fake answer? Just anything. Maybe families became larger, right? Maybe that happened. Or maybe there was an introduction of a new tool, right? So you see that in answering the question, I'm kind of framing myself to understand it's like a change that took place. Something new happened, something changed, and something shifted. So now I'm very prepared to look at the reading and discover that when I'm reading, because I have that fake answer in my head. So now that we have that, we have our key words, we're ready to start reading. Now, I really want to prepare you, so I'm going to tell you a couple things. First thing is that I wanted this to be easy for you to kind of digest. So I've broken down the first paragraph into sections. So even though it looks like 4 paragraphs, it's actually just 1. So of course, our answer is in the first paragraph. Our question tells us this. Now, as you start reading, why did we make the fake answer? Because we got to hold that information in our head. We got to hold that question so that as we read, we're also doing something else, which is remembering what the question asked. Because think about it this way. I want you, so I have, 5 fingers, right? So I'm going to hold up a number of fingers, and you tell me how many I'm holding up. 3, right? Okay. So let's say that I want you to say yes as soon as you see me hold up 3, right? Just say yes out loud while you're watching the video. So, no. You got to be careful of the fingers I hold up, right? No. No. Yes, right? So you're concentrating on 3. So that means you're going to see it faster, right? You're not going to waste your time focusing on this. You're not going to waste your time concentrating on this. So that's why we have the fake answer in our head. That's why we have the key words. So that as you read, you're aware, oh, this sentence, isn't the one I'm looking for. Oh, this sentence isn't that important. So you're scanning and reading kind of fast. You're moving quick, but your brain is alert, kind of looking for the 3, looking for the key words. So that's when you have to start concentrating because you don't have to understand everything. So I hope that makes sense. As I told you, or I'm not sure if I told you, but this is kind of a tough question, right? So the reason why it's tough is because in the very beginning we see our key words. Between 9,000 and 4,000 years ago, most of Mexico, that's every key word, right? Except one, development. So you have to make sure that you recognize that when you see all your keywords or synonyms of your keywords, then you have the content to determine the answer. And I told you this one is hard. So what makes a hard question? As you remember, 60% of the time, the TOEFL in one sentence has all of your keywords. So that makes it really easy because you just need to focus on one sentence. 20% of the time, you have to read the sentence after. So you have to kind of understand 2 sentences. 10% of the time, maybe the next sentence. So you have to kind of digest 3 sentences. And really rare, like this question, you actually have to kind of look at the whole paragraph. But how do you know you need to do that? Because you're aware of the question. You know what you're looking for. So you can tell, oh, I haven't read my answer yet. I got to keep reading. You're aware of all the keywords you're searching for. So if you don't have them, you know, oh, I got to keep reading because my answer isn't here yet. So when I read this sentence, between 9,000 and 4,000 years ago, most of Mexico was inhabited mainly by hunter-foragers who lived in small bands that moved with the seasons to exploit cactus fruits, deer herds, nuts, and the hundreds of other plant and animal species in their range, depending on the season. That's a really big sentence, right? So the first thing is, if you notice, we have every keyword except development. So a lot of students are going to get tricked. They're going to think they have the answer here, look at the answer choices, choose something that kind of makes sense, and it's going to be wrong. So you got to be alert. The reading requires your focus. It's not easy. If it were easy, you wouldn't need us, right? You would pass already. So when you look at this, was inhabited isn't a development. It isn't a change. It's just a fact. Now I'm going to give you another tip that's kind of important. As I said, this video is going to be big. It's going to be in depth. It's going to cover a lot of things. This is a really powerful tutoring session. So my goal is this video means you don't need tutoring on the reading for detailed questions. Because if you master this, you're going to get everything we teach. So the first thing is, since this is a big sentence, you want to digest it piece by piece, right? You guys know what digest means. Eat, right? Or your body kind of processes. So imagine you're sitting down for dinner, right? Do you shove all the food in your mouth all at once? Of course not, right? You make yourself sick. You eat it one piece at a time. The same thing with this sentence. So between 9,000 and 4,000 years ago, maybe take a moment to close your eyes. Do I understand that? Yes. Then you keep moving forward. If you don't understand what you've just read, if you can't summarize it after reading just a few words, you're not reading with the right concentration level. So just like with the question, start the sentence over. Train yourself to concentrate at a level where you just need to read it once, maybe twice, but really just once, step by step. Now again, I want to remind you, I want to guide you through this. So why are we paying attention to this sentence? Why are we reading carefully? Because it has our key words. So we got to be alert. We got to recognize an answer may be here. We're not doing this for every sentence. If this sentence didn't have our key words, we'd just be scanning quickly. Does that make sense? Yeah, it's very important. So I read that piece and then I read the next piece. Most of Mexico was inhabited. Okay, I understand that. You know, between a certain period of time, 9,000, 4,000, most of Mexico was inhabited. What does that mean? Not all of Mexico, so some of it wasn't inhabited, some kind of understanding. Now I read the next part. Mainly by hunter-foragers. Okay, I get that. This kind of people, hunter-foragers. I keep reading. Who lived in small bands. Okay, Maybe I am not quite sure what that means, but maybe something small. They lived in some small what? Communities, groups, villages, something like that, right? So you see how I'm digesting, eating, one little piece at a time. And when I finish understanding it, when I finish eating and I swallow it, then I take the next bite. So you got to make sure you close your eyes. Okay, I got it. Now I'm ready for the next piece. And then you really have understanding. You're building comprehension. And as I told you, this video is already way longer than 1 minute and 17 seconds, right? But that's because this is really a training video. You got to learn it. You got to be comfortable with it. You got to review. So when you practice, practice without a timer. So that way you can build your skill, and then when you're ready, you can introduce the timer. So now we're going to look at the next sentence, because we haven't answered our question yet, right? We don't read anything about development. So I have everything except development. So let me read the next sentence. Since these bands, okay, these groups of people, were small in size and never stayed in one place. So I'm understanding. Do we have a development yet? No, because all we're doing is learning facts. A development, as you know, when we made our fake answer, was a change. It was something different. I haven't read that yet. I haven't read a change. So I keep reading. For a sufficient period of time to have much long-term effect on the plant and animal populations. Okay, do you understand that? Right? On which they subsisted. Okay, maybe some tough vocabulary words, but we don't want to get stuck on it because we're looking for something that represents development. So I'm just reading facts. They moved around, and so because they moved around, they didn't really influence their environment, their habitat, because they moved so much. The hunter-foragers' overall impact on the environment was low. Did I get my keyword development? No. Next sentence. So this is rare, right? We said before, only 10% of questions on the TOEFL for the detail are this tough. But I wanted to train you for the more difficult ones so you really understand you have to be alert. This is how you're going to get a top score. So again, I have all my keywords except development. Do I read development in this sentence? And what is the development? Because then I have my answer. Then I can look at the answer choices. So you see, after every sentence I read, I'm not checking the answer choices. That's a waste of time, that's ineffective, and you're going to get tricked. Because the TOEFL makes those answer choices to trick you. So when you have the answer, then you look at the answer choice. Now we continue. A few groups along the margins of the lake, right? Okay, so groups on the edge, in the Valley of Mexico may have been sedentary villagers. Maybe you don't know that word. Okay, that's okay. But have been something. Is that a change? Is that a development? No, right? Because it's just a description. They have been eating. They have been sleeping. They have been whatever they may be. It's just, it's not a change or development. As were some groups along the coast. And their role in the domestication of plants and animals, okay, you know, the influence they had in this, the role they played, and the eventual spread of agriculture is unclear. So I just have something unclear. This sentence just says the influence they had on this was not clear. Is that a development? No, it's not. Wow, now I'm in the fourth sentence. So the truth is, I gotta have my change here. And in reality, you may be running into words you don't know. So if after you look at the whole paragraph, you don't see all your key words, it likely means that you missed it. So you have to go back and continue to train yourself with the close eye technique to make sure that you're biting little pieces of information at a time, that you understand before you move on, because you're missing your answer. So you're going to have to kind of repeat everything. But sometimes that happens. That's why I want you to practice without a timer. And I'm going to tell you, a lot of students who succeed, one thing they say after they succeed, and I say, what tip would you give most students who are working to succeed, who are working to get their dream score? And they said, follow the practice one question reading 50 times, not practice 50 questions once. So that's why review is important, because you really master this process. You can do it much faster. So let's look at the last sentence. Some researchers suggest, okay, no development, however, that by about 4,000 years ago, Okay, it's our key word, kind of like 9,000 to 4,000 years ago. Maize cob size, maybe you don't know what maize is or cob, but you see, okay, something size, had become large enough. Had become large enough. What does that mean? Had become. There's a shift, there's a change. We have a possible development. Does that make sense? If not, make sure that you review the other sentences because none of them described a switch or a change. But when something had become, it means before it was this, now it's something else. My friend became a doctor, right? A change took place. Before not doctor, after doctor, right? He became champion. Before not champion, after champion, right? So that's the development, that's the change. So had become large enough that people over large areas of the Mexican highlands could subsist mainly on maize. So even if you don't know the words, you know something about this. Maize, whatever it is, became large enough that people could subsist. Now you may or may not know what subsist means, and even if you don't, I'm just going to kind of let the key words sink in with you. Because remember, now when you look at the answer choices, or actually, I'm sorry, before you look at the answer choices, you want to pre-phrase an answer. Remember how you made a fake answer? Now you actually want to come up with your own answer. So it's right here. You don't have to play with the words, you don't have to paraphrase, you don't have to use synonyms. What's the development that took place? There's only one we read. Maize cob size had become large enough that people over large areas of the Mexican highlands could subsist mainly on maize. That's the answer right there. So when you look at the answer choices for detailed questions, you need to have an answer in your head first, or else you're going to be confused. Right? You got it? So this is good. We're getting there. So now when we look at the answer choices, we have another system for you to be fast and efficient. So you know you have 4 answer choices, A, B, C, D. What you want to do is you want to read each answer choice, every single word, carefully, just like you did the question. And at the end of it, not thinking too much, maybe just a second or two, maybe 3, you want to decide, yes, this is the answer, no, it is not the answer, or maybe it is the answer. So you're going to decide yes, no, or maybe quickly. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to have something like this. No, no, yes, no. You know, the third answer is C is your answer, right? You might also have this. No, 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 maybe, right? Because you're not sure. What's the answer? It's D. And that's why this strategy is so powerful, because a lot of you, when you're not sure, you want to keep thinking and keep wasting time trying to figure out if the answer is or isn't, D, the maybe, when all the other answers don't work. So you can just choose and move on. Other times you may have something like this. No, yes, maybe, maybe. What's your answer then? B. Because it's all comparison. You're not choosing the perfect answer. You're choosing the best answer out of the 4. There's another possibility. No, 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 right? Which essentially means you got to go back to the beginning because you missed something. And that happens. You might also get yes, 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 same thing. But that's rare. Now here's another one. This is the last one I'll give you. And that's no, maybe, maybe, no. Now that just means you're stuck between 2 answer choices. And here's one thing that I want to tell you. The reading is academic. It's a standardized test. So it's not literature. It's not something that you can have many interpretations. Because if it is, it's not a test, right? Because there's no such thing as a right answer. So the reading is actually closer to math than it is to literature. Because in mathematics, we have a general concept that there's only one possible answer, right? 2 plus 2 equals 4. It doesn't equal 3. So when you look at the reading, that's how you want to think. It's precise and exact. So if you're stuck between 2 answers, it's not because there's something crazy and you have to think hard. It's you miss something very obvious and clear. Sometimes it can be a vocab word, so it can be tough. But I want you to think it's like math. It's not like literature. And that's why we create so much success. So now that we have our answer, now that we know how to go through the answer choice, let's finally get there, right? So I'm going to bring it up on the screen, and we see A. Sedentary villagers gradually disappeared. Already, I think this doesn't work, right? We know our answer. Maize cob size had become large enough that people over large areas of the Mexican highlands could subsist mainly on maize. This is completely disconnected, but we have to read every word. It's our system. It's our process. Except along the coast and along lake shores. So yes, no, or maybe? Depends. Might be confused a bit. You'll say no or maybe, but this can't be a yes. So I say, you say no. Now B. Agriculture spread steadily as more and more plants were domesticated. Well, I don't know. You can say maybe. The sentence is clear and it doesn't really match. But we're talking about agriculture, I don't know, domesticated. I remember reading that, even though this has nothing to do with our sentence. So we'll leave it as a no or a maybe. But remember, you have to choose one. So I'm saying you may say no or you may say maybe, but you have to choose one. So for me, this is still a no. C. Hunter-foragers living on the coasts moved to the highlands. Moved to the highlands? We had become large enough. So this is definitely a no, right? So we're running out of choices, so let's see D. Maize emerged as the dominant food plant. Okay, maize is there, but what about had become large enough? I'm not sure. I would say this is a maybe or a yes, right? That's what you should think. So in my opinion, most of you will come up with something like A, B, C as no, 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 and D a maybe. And you have your answer because D is correct. Or you might have like A, no, maybe, no, maybe. Then on a super hard question, you have a 50-50 chance of getting it right. So remember, this is a really, really hard one. But I think we have a system so that it really works. Because what happens is that subsist means eat, and maize is a kind of food. So it says maize cob size had become large enough that people over large areas, so large areas of the Mexican highlands could subsist mainly on maize. So subsist mainly means dominant food, right? Because subsist means eat mainly. So maize emerged as the dominant food plant. D is our answer choice. So I hope that makes sense. Now this video is intense. It takes you through every single step, but this is what you got to do for every detail question and inference questions too, but you can look at that video because that'll be in more detail for those. So review this, because remember the standard that we say. When you review something once, you get a sense of it. When you review it twice, you start developing some understanding. But the third time at least is when you start developing mastery. So do every step, do your best, good luck. Any questions, you know where to reach us, studenthelp@noteful.com. This is guaranteed to get you higher scores. So wonderful teaching you, and I'll talk to you guys later on another video. Bye-bye.